understand what gaps in terms of education you need. For me, I think entrepreneurs don't need as much academic education, because the thing with academic education, and please, campuses and university, don't come for me. I have my master's from USIU. A classroom can lock your mind. If they're going to start a business, the planning stage will take 90% or 80% of their energy and their time. They will be locked into a room. They will try different scenarios to achieve that goal. Hi guys, and welcome back to our podcast. Today is episode 1 of your entrepreneurship journey. Here, we're going to guide you and work with you to make sure that you are successful in making money in 2025 in this world today. Making money is not hard. The how-to is what seems complex. And for me, my name is Wangari, popularly known as the farmer on fire, been successful doing agri-business and specifically mushroom farming entrepreneurship. But I realized after a while, all your DMs are mostly about how do I start this business? How do I start this other business? What are the pitfalls that I need to understand? And above all, the mindset that is needed to become a risk taker in business. So karibuni, and get your notebook and pens ready, because we are going to learn how to make money. I'm going to start with my story because I believe teachers should also be people who immerse themselves in the experience and not just teach theoretically. Myself, I started this business that is now known as a global company, winning several global awards, just with almost zero capital. So when you don't have money, this is the podcast for you. When you are wondering where you're going to get the brilliant idea that is going to sort you for life, this is your podcast right here. For us, Empower and Elevate is a space where you can come and find people who are energizing you, who are motivating you, who are inspiring you into finding your niche. Remember that business can be in any area. There is no specific, product that has the magical pill. However, it is through the journey that you find yourself getting a niche that works for you. It can be sand business. You can start it today, and in a few years, you have gotten to where you wanted to go. It can be agriculture. Here, I am a living testimony on that. It can be wholesale. It can be any type of business that you want to start. However, we want to show you where others have failed so that you don't have to go through the same hurdles and repeating their mistakes. And in that way, you are wiser and inspired to keep going. Number 1 for us is mindset. Mindset is such a big issue because ideas are brilliant, but everyone has ideas all the time. However, it is having that inner motivation, inner mindset of believing that you're going to succeed. A lot of people, when I ask them on our social media, what are the challenges? Why haven't you started the business that you promised you're going to start in January when you were setting your objectives for the year? And number 1 is usually capital. Number 2 is usually lack of information. So for us, mindset is going to become a very big chunk of this podcast. We're going to be having guests who are going to be telling us how they started their businesses. And the idea is not just to copy whatever product or service they're selling. The idea is to show you the resilience and the mindset of this person. So when watching, always ask yourself, what are the characteristics of this powerful business person? What is it that makes them wake up every morning despite the challenges? Because let me tell you, we've been lied to. Challenges are there. They are part of the journey. Death, loss, failure, mistakes, they are part of it. And you fearing to start an entrepreneurship journey because, your relatives will laugh at you when things go wrong is not something to stay away from. This podcast will make sure that you are aware and you're working hand in hand with those failures. I mean, Rihanna's tattoo on her shoulder says, no failures, just lessons. And when you have that mindset of, yes, I will find challenges on my way, but I will be able to overcome, is the first thing that you need to understand. In this podcast, you will also be able to understand what are the steps needed to start the business. And we don't just mean in terms of registering the business, getting a physical location or wherever. It starts with the idea of which product should you go into or service. For us, it's about value. If you offer value, you will never struggle with market. Let me give myself, for example. When we started mushroom farming, we realized everyone is doing mushroom farming. However, we tried to crack our heads and figure out what can we offer value within that mushroom business. And for us, it was market. We realized in agriculture, production is in plenty. However, when it comes to market, there is always premium tiers. And people end up villainizing the middleman or saying, oh, cabbages are going for 2 shillings. Every farmer is producing at the same time. This podcast is not about how to start a business like everyone else. It's about what areas can we niche in where we can offer value to other people. For example, doing taxes. Everyone wants to start a business, but they don't want to understand how to do taxes, how to do accounting, how to do stock taking. You have imported things from China, but do you even know the quantities that you have in your store? No. We want you to understand that it is good to do the hard things first, because everyone is running away from that. And when you generate that resilience within yourself, you will find that with time, you will be able to do the hard things, which majority of people are not doing, making you valuable. And we said value equals money. So let's chase value and not money. Additionally, we want to remind you that there is something called the 6-month loop in any business. What happens to most entrepreneurs, although it's in try and error, and we appreciate the trying and the risk taking, is that you heard that onions will make you 1 million within 6 months. And so you go, you take a loan and invest in the project. However, what no one tells you, or what might not sell the newspapers and the blogs, is that every business has a learning curve. You start with knowing very little about the business and understanding what is it that you're trying to do. Remember, we are all stumbling in the dark. The Mark Zuckerberg, the Gates, all those rich people, they started with the uncertainty that you are struggling with as well. However, the idea is to stick with it. So the 6-month loop is when you're trying to start a business, but after a few months, you give up on it because it's become hard, because it's become different from your expectation and your vision. I am here to tell you that that loop will be in every business you start. And that's why you find a lot of entrepreneurs will start doing mutumba business. And they're like, oh, we are a thrift shop. Then 5-6 months down the line, they've stopped. They've started a new one. Oh, I want to do YouTubing. And then they'll find, oh, in a few months, whatever expectation they had has not been fulfilled. And so they will quit that. And they will go back and set up new capital and watch a few YouTube videos, get inspiration, and start kitchen gardening with the expectation of making money. And they keep circling that loop and they'll never break through. The idea is to have that resilience, that staying power. Sometimes it's not the smartest people who succeed in business. It's the people who have the staying power, who have the strength and resilience, who know that I just need to go 1 more month, another 1 more month, and before you know it, the year is over, and somehow you have made a dent and established yourself as an entrepreneur. So this podcast will be concentrating on working on developing those characteristics and traits within yourself so that you become the person. Entrepreneurship is not just the business. The founder becomes the business. It is the mindset of the founder that moves the business forward. If you don't understand that it is how you think that affects how much money comes into your account, then this thing, you're getting it all wrong. We need to shape you as the founder. We need to empower you. We need to make sure that all the gaps that you are lacking in are getting better and better with time. And that means that you become the person who is worth that $1 million business. In my experience and my travels, I've been, I think, to Paris. I've been to the US a couple of times. I've been to so many countries, and in those rooms is where you find people who came up with an idea trying to solve a solution for people. And that is where I always ask people who want to start the business to start with what is the need, what is the problem on the ground. For example, for us, we wanted to start a business where we are producing food. However, we had limitation of space. So for me, it wasn't about growing in 10 acres or 15 acres. It was about finding a crop that will still make economic sense, but still make me money in the small space that I have. And that's how I started urban farming, backyard farming, and eventually into mushroom farming. So it's about what is the problem you're having. Sometimes you can start a business from things like allergies. There are people who have pollen allergy and they have tried to figure out something around that and eventually finding a solution and scaling it up, because as people, as human beings, these challenges also are affecting some other people and they're not finding a solution. So whatever unique situation you're in, maybe you have an eyesight problem, you have, you have a snoring problem, or your partner has a snoring problem, your children have certain allergies that are unique and you've not been able to find a way to cope with them, you can be the best person to find a solution, because first you will test it with yourself or your immediate family and see the performance, and then scale it to other people who are finding the same challenge. The idea of the business has to solve a problem. This thing of replicating ideas that you have seen people try and do out here is not sustainable. It is important that the product or the service that you're creating be authentically trying to solve a problem, and that sustains you and makes sure that you will always have a market. Number 2 is to test the idea in a small way. This is where the fear comes. The ideas are there. However, testing the idea, if it's a product, can we come up with a prototype? If it's importing goods from China, right now there is such a huge buzz, given that the Americans are withdrawing from the Chinese market. And there has been a lot of talk that this is an opportunity to try and ship in goods. However, every time you download that Alibaba app or that app that you might have that helps you import whatever you're trying to import, you don't have to import 1,000 units. Try by importing 2 units. So the mindset of an entrepreneur is very critical. Surround yourself with mentors. Surround yourself with content that is going to build towards the journey of where you're going. When you're on TikTok, don't just swipe and listen to the tea. Yes, I know the tea is very sweet and juicy, but spend a chunk of your time online working and using the search bar to check for things that will add value towards the direction you're going. Understand what gaps in terms of education you need. For me, I think entrepreneurs don't need as much academic education, because the thing with academic education, and please, campuses and university, don't come for me. I have my master's from USIU. It's not that I don't believe in the education system. I had to do it. My parents made me follow that script. However, I have realized that a classroom can lock your mind can make you think that the only way to do something is that one theory that you've been exposed to by your lecturers, by your teachers. However, when you figure ground out here, entrepreneurship can go 1,000 different ways. And that opening of the mind really helps you to cope with whatever challenges are coming, because then you don't stop when you find an obstacle. So education is important in terms of socialization, creating networks, people who will link you to those, clients that you're looking for. But getting to the scene early really helps. I'll give you an example. Our dad, whenever we closed school, during weekends, we used to work in his business. And his business was considered dirty. Those people who are from Nyahururu know. We used to show up in overalls in town and in the banking hall. My dad would not let you remove the overall. For him, it was a dignity. It was something of dignity when you show up and your hands are looking dirty, but you're going to deposit 100K those times. So for us, we learned that you don't have to be embarrassed of how you look as long as you're making your ends meet and you're making your money. And that's why when people are struggling, when I'm telling them to go into agriculture, when they've been brought up in the culture of you should always look clean, agriculture is dirty, is seen as backward and not as appealing. I get that point. But me, I had the advantage that my dad exposed me to that thinking mentality early on. And for us who are trying to get into entrepreneurship, finding a mentor is the quickest way to do that. So someone is doing a business that you'd like to go in, go offer help. You don't even have to have a formal conversation at I want you to become my mentor. That one scares people because most entrepreneurs don't know what they are doing. They just know that if I press this and I press this and I press that, I get money coming out of that end. But sometimes when you approach someone and you're like, I want you to mentor me, it gives them so much pressure and they're just like, no. So you don't even have to have that initial mentorship conversation. You can just go and hang out with them and act like you're just having a soft conversation, but you're observing and understanding how the processes go. This lady for mobile, Dama Mobile, it also started with that, and now she's created a $1 billion empire. She was employed by this Muhindi, but she wasn't just like any employee. She was conversant on how the processes work, how the operations work, how the business entails, sourcing clients and things like that. So exposing yourself, don't say, I'm going to work and not be paid. No, don't also ask for internship. Internship is a word that scares a lot of existing entrepreneurs as well, because they're just like, hey, now if you're my intern, I have to take care of you, I have to make sure that you're getting value, and that creates pressure for that person. So don't use those two words, but know your intentions before walking into this person. Show them your value. If they have gaps here and there, show them that you can come in. Of course, be trustworthy, otherwise they won't entertain you in their business. And jitume. Don't just sit there and you're seeing them struggling to lift, some of the stock. Help them, make their life easier, and they will be open to having you under your wing. So yeah, this podcast will be quite an interesting journey. It will be about risk taking, about facing your biggest fears, facing judgment. It's gonna be the other side of success, because everyone wants success. But when they're told, here, there are some gaps. And for me, when I face those types of people, I truly understand them, but I'm like, there is no way. Because most of them will be like, Wangari, can you grow for me the mushrooms in your farm? And then you just give me the money. And I'm like, that is the quickest way, number one, to get conned. Number two, you cannot get a baby if you haven't carried the pregnancy and had the challenges of swollen feet and bad mood swings and bad cravings and carrying, a mutungi the whole day. And you can't even put it down when it's time to go to sleep or go to shower. No. Understand that the business is just like your baby. You have to go with it through the hard times for you to experience the success. Yeah, hope you got that. Engage with us. Let us know how we can open up your mind on certain challenges that you might have. For me, it's exciting. For me, it's an opportunity to share what I know. The world we are in today is amazing. The fact that there is social media and we can be able to gain knowledge very fast. I think the difference between those people who've made it and those who haven't is the knowledge gap. And we are in the knowledge era. And if I can be able to offer something to someone that will be of help and of impact, I don't want to die with this information. And that's why I think I started Farm on Fire. It's to empower and inspire others. Why I write books, why, I've engaged with people the way I have, starting projects that are helping communities. It's all about empowering people. I want to see people in a better position than they are in. If they surpass me, well and good. I'm all rooting for you. For me, it's about sharing. We are here to serve one another. Yeah, so I went to uni in UN. I'm actually a village girl. I grew up in Nyandarua. I grew up watching my mom go to the farm, and since I was the only last-born girl, I was the only girl who was a last-born. So my brothers could go gallivanting, climbing trees, riding bicycles, and playing out there. But my mom, I think she had a safety thing, so I just stayed next to her. And my mom was a house help, and she worked in the farm, as most moms are. The work of domestic work also includes agricultural work. So I was part of that, and that's how I got exposed to a lot of man hours in terms of agriculture. So I'd follow her in the farm when growing up, since I was 3-4 years till high school. And then after high school, I was like, hey dad, I'm not staying here, because my dad had a company where he expected all his kids will work there, and I worked there as a cashier for around 2 years. And then I was like, this town is too small for me. I had been inspired by my cousin who had left and went to the UK, Aberdeen, for her master's. And I was just like, she doesn't know anyone there, and she has guts to do this. Even me, wacha nijitingisha, I see what will happen. So I was like, I want to go to Nairobi. I want to go do school there. And my dad was like, yeah, okay, no problem. So I ended up in UN. I didn't even know what course to do. Like, career coaching is an important thing. So I chose the cheapest course that they had. So they had sociology and communication, and that's what they had. And I added political science, which was a bit spicy for me. And I liked that. I always like to have an edge. I think I'm extra like that, but everyone is. Listen to your instincts. They are the best foundation of getting you to where you want to go. Then after that, I tamaked a bit, around 2 years. There's a time I was even working at the casino. I was a deal maker, and I know all about cards and Lorette. It's called what? The Lorette table. It's called what? Yeah. And it was a night shift job. And the casino would close at 3 a.m. And I would be like, there's no way you're going out in Nairobi at 3 a.m. Otherwise, mtashikwa, and you'll be told you're soliciting in the streets. So you would sleep on the chairs. That employer was so bad, they wouldn't give us place to lala. But yeah, and then later on, I started a cleaning company. Then I was invited to join a real estate company as an estate manager on Kiambu Road. And I think that's where now my career started. So I did that for around 4 years. And then I was promoted into their construction company, where I did, I was in procurement and eventually the project manager of construction. So I think my experience for construction comes from that exposure of being with the company for around 5 years, making sure that procedures are being followed. It was quite an interesting journey, I would say. It really gave me a lot of discretion to decide what to do with the roles that I'd been given. So in a way, it was exposing me to entrepreneurship, because I had a lot of decision-making lying on my table. And then the company went down after President Uhuru came up with a capping of 14% on interest rates, and the kind of houses we were building were off plan, which meant that we couldn't be able to go into our financiers, which were the commercial banks, to get access to those loans to build the houses. And we needed a huge chunk of money to start off because the people are paying it kidogo kidogo. So that was the off-plan model. And it didn't work if we didn't have the financiers coming in. So the company went down and I found myself out in the streets, retrenched. And that's when I moved to Kitengela. Yeah, and started building my way up, building my life, building my identity. It was not easy, but I remembered what I knew, which was my mom had a kitchen garden and always had a kitchen garden. And it was the saving grace. And the difference between our neighbors sleeping hungry and us not, it's because my mom had a kitchen garden. So she would have vegetables, pumpkins, just a lot of mixed agriculture there. And that's what I started. Of course, I had challenges given that Kitengela is very arid, no water, no rainfall. But I did irrigation. And I started the kitchen garden that grew into this non-vegetable business. And then that's when I went into mushroom farming and working with communities. So I started a project with the Maasai women in Kajiado, where when there was a drought for like 4 years, it hadn't rained in the whole of Kajiado. And that's when we build manyatas and we would start growing mushrooms, because mushrooms grow indoors, those of you guys who don't know. And that way you can be able to control. You need very little water, very little resources. It's not labor intensive. It doesn't need a lot of, it's not dependent on the climate, on the weather outside. You can be able to control the temperatures because you're doing it indoors. And as you know, mushroom is a high value crop. So for me, that's where now things went well. I got the Global Citizen Award in New York, which was pretty exciting. And then I also got the 40 Under 40 Africa Awards in South Africa. That was also a good highlight. And then I continued with the business entrepreneurship. So we buy mushrooms from farmers who are producing, who have trained and worked with us to ensure that there is quality, and that has been going on very well. And I think that's what the brand is known for. Farmer on Fire and Wangari Kudia, they're known for mushroom farming. However, we got a lot of requests on our DMs. Number one was, can I get a job? Number two, can I start this business? And that's why we're here today. That's a very interesting question, actually, because a long time ago, studies were showing that you're either born an entrepreneur or not. You're either born to do a desk job or not. And for me, maybe to give more clarity and to be more specific, is that entrepreneurship can be for everyone. However, you need to understand the type of thinker that you are. So there are 4 types of thinkers. There is the linear thinker, there is the experimenter, there is the extrapolator, and there is the wormhole. For me, I think I'm the experimenter, but let me just break it down to you and see where you fall at. The linear thinker thinks in one direction. As the word suggests, linear, they go straight. They're like, I set a goal, and I'm going to be getting, shoes from Kamukunji and deliver them to Meru. And that's what they do. They set a goal, they come up with a route or a path, and they follow it strictly to that and deliver. They are very good planners, and they are also very reliable. These are the people who make the world go around. Those people who are like, make very good servicemen in terms of cops, firefighters, people who work in government. They make the world function. They are the people that we rely on. And if you look at, in terms of like a pyramid of where all these types of thinkers fall, they are the majority. So they do what they do, and they make the world function. They make sure that we have power every day. KPLC is working because of those people. And they also make very good engineers, because engineering is a lot of instructions and following instructions and that kind of thing. They don't like having misinformation. When the plan changes, they get very disoriented, but they are linear thinkers, as I have said. The second type of thinker is the experimenter. These are the people who wake up inspired like from on fire, and they want to try and take risks, and they are driven by curiosity. They want to understand how something works, how to improve it, how to create innovations, how to, use less resources to get to their desired goal. So number one, they are very flexible, and number two, they might not necessarily get the desired goal. However, these are the people who improve the world. If it wasn't for the experimenter, the world would just be running in terms of linear thinkers. The car would still be the same old car that was invented by Ford. It is the experimenters who come and improve on existing technology that has already been made by the linear thinkers. So I hope you get that one right, because sometimes also in my communication, I want everyone to think like me, which is take that risk, just jump, just start, don't be caught up in analysis paralysis. But then when I came to understand that you could be a different type of a thinker, so you need to understand first who you are, how you think, and how you see the world, and move in that direction. Because when you move in authenticity, you achieve more, comparing to trying to be like Wangari, and your body and your mind is trying to fight you in your journey. The third types of thinkers are called extrapolators. These people, they sit in design stage forever. If they are going to start a company, they are the Vusi, Vusi's story, Vusi Tembekwayo, the South African business person. They have those kinds of mind. If they're going to start a business, the planning stage will take 90% or 80% of their energy and their time. They will be locked into a room. They will try different scenarios to achieve that goal. Let's say this extrapolator is a farmer, but they don't know what type of business they want to go into, but they just know they have 10 acres. They need to decide what to plant, how to plant it, how to get it to market, whether to export or to start processing it, all those things. They think in a complex way. They think in complex solutions. They are very good at playing chess, and let me explain this better. They take one route, but not like the linear one. They take one route of, I need to get shoes from Kamkunji to Meru. But then they think of 30 other ways to still get those shoes to Meru, which is their desired goal. And they think of the challenges in each route, and then come up with the best solutions in terms of which one will use less resources, which one will be more efficient, and that kind of thing. So they make also very good project managers and contractors as well. However, they can be caught up by analysis paralysis, because they think in such a broad way, such a complex way, that it takes very long for them to take action. And lastly, we have the wormholes. These ones, we can say they are more spiritual, they're more intuition, they're very calm. They just, they have a vision and they go for it. And they don't know how or where or when, but they get to their desired goal. These are the kinds of people I listen to. Like, I'll go to some of these conferences that we go to, and this man has a plan that needs $30 million in capital. They themselves don't even drive a car, but give that person 3-4 years, they will have their desired goal. And if you ask them how they got there, they also don't know, because they didn't have a map or a plan. So they're called wormhole. They use intuition to move, and they usually move in a very big way. They are the Kibakis of our time. They come up with a vision 2030. We weren't even thinking about 2030 by that time. They come up with a plan for 30 years. They don't know how it's going to happen, but they just move and they make it happen. And they give to the extrapolators to figure out how exactly it's going to happen. But they have these big visionaries. They have this, they think about, I want to be exporting vegetables and I need 30 trucks. And they go to a commercial bank and they convince them to buy them 30 trucks with their own, cash flow. So they're very good at that. The idea is to try and be at least 2 or 3 mixed up, so that you're also not getting the plain risks of each. And as we know about character traits, you can be an introvert and an extrovert, but it's better to try and attain both, where you are at the middle, so that in different situations you can swing between your extremes to get you to your desired goals. So it's the same with the thinkers. Don't just be an experimenter who never actually gets something growing. It's also good to mix it with the linear, who we think of them as boring people. So partner with a person who thinks differently from you to get that added benefit, that complex, that way of engaging people in a different way. Yeah. So for me, yes, anyone can become an entrepreneur. Mentorship is a loaded word. So for me, I'll just break it down to, it's to learn how to do something. Our parents were our mentors. We learned how to cook from them, you know. It was not that we watched them, we understood how to, you know, source for resources you need to make that meal. If the guests come and you are so young, you always used to shake, because you'd be like, where is my mom? Where did my mom go? You don't know how to make tea for those guests. But with time, through your mom exposing you to, you need milk, you need water, you need this size of sufuria to make these cups of tea. So that in a way is mentorship. We don't have to complicate mentorship to be this formal thing that people talk about, and a mentor has to be this, you know, powerful executive, the big people in business, the Manu Chandarias. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be anyone who can offer you experience. And this is why I appreciate domestic workers. Domestic workers, if only someone can open up and extend their CVs. There was a time I was doing a CV for my cousin who wanted to get a job in, I think, Saudi Arabia. And we had to do a CV. And it is that point where we had to break down the roles and the things they had to do on a daily. And I realized, this person is very experienced, because this person has to know how to do the shopping, because they are told, nini hakuna. That one sentence means that this person has to figure out what supplies they have, what quantities are remaining, what are the next quantities that are needed for the next month. So kama ni makaa, utaongeza makaa kama debe moja. You know, if it's ugali, how many times do we cook ugali, and how much is needed, how many packets are needed to last the entire month. You know, all those systems are just on one person that we might disregard and call them a house help, but they have that knowledge in them, but it's just not been explored and you know, dignified and put on paper. This person understands cleaning. Cleaning is not just cleaning. There are people who you prefer cleaning for you than others. Why? Because that person has a system on how they clean, and they achieved that, and they achieve that. There are people who are tidy, who are not tidy, but they are clean. They will scrub the floors and make sure everything is sparklers. But when it comes to arranging things and putting things in their place, they might lack with that. So for me, it's observing. What do I need to do? I need to become a podcaster. Where can I observe someone doing this? You know, try find networks, try find, you will always find people in your networks. Ask your mom. Moms have a lot of networks. Tell them, ninataka ku understand hii maneno ya kwenda Isili. They will find you someone who sells something, who can connect you to someone, to someone, to someone. And when you go, don't use big words, mentorship, sijui nini. Just go and say, nataka tu. You know, you can even start with a day, hanging out with them, and you act very casually. You can buy them lunch to show them that you're also bringing something in. But you don't even have to most of the time. It comes to when you're helping them do what they are doing in the process of the day. Don't expect that a mentor will sit with you and you'll take notes. No, for me, mentorship, it's in the practice. It's in the grind. I got a lot of mentorship in my career. I think the number one person that I'm always grateful, I also wrote it on my autobiography, is James Kishero. This man, when I joined the real estate company, really held my hand. And that's how I got to think of myself better. And sometimes I would come to him with issues like, I'm not coming in tomorrow because, I have this engagement. And he got to that point when he's like, Wangari, you're in senior management. Understand who you are. Sit on your chair. Plan your day. Plan your work. If you don't want to come to work, that's on you. Just know that there will be something hanging because of you not attending. So arrange. Make sure your schedules are straight. Make sure if it's delegation, you've sorted everything. And if the emergencies, think through everything so that when you're not able to come. And so, but sometimes when you position and say you want a mentor, they might not be able to give you all the answers. It is in that thing, when you're in the deep of that thing, that you call them and you're like, hey, I'm having this challenge, of its politics. How do I cope with this? How do I handle this? And because they've been through it a couple of times. So my idea is to find a mentor, is someone who has been in it, who has had the experience over and over and has come to figure out a way of still, surviving in that industry. Have I given mentorship? I think that's what I do, especially on social media. I try and do my own social media, although at this point it's becoming overwhelming. So there's that. But there are scripts that I've written so that if someone asks this question, they're able to adequately get good answers. I do a lot of trainings, so that can count as mentorship, because first I make sure that someone has all the basics before they go into a certain direction. And obviously I offer one-on-one mentorships for those people who are struggling with, sometimes you're like, I know I have potential, I know I have the ability, but I don't know where to start. So that's really a good way of knowing that I need a mentor and I need it in this area. And if it's paid, pay for it. Otherwise, you'll spend 7 years like I did trying to figure out agri-business. But also, I didn't have mentors in that industry. And I think that's why I like sharing, because I struggled to figure my path out. But if you can get someone who can help you, even if they're charging you, pay for that. You'll pay more in losses and in other ways if you think that paying someone $2,000 to train you on something is expensive. And then you go take a loan of 100K, start that business without the mentorship, and then you end up losing your entire capital. So mentorship is very important, I think, for me. Even as I'm going into other industries, I always look out for people who can hold my hand, understand my challenges. Like for me, sometimes I get overwhelmed when about to start a project. So I always try and see who can get me to the starting point, because after the starting point it starts to roll and I know how to go with the flow quite easy. Yeah, so mentorship is quite important. I think this podcast is for everyone, but I think I'll be daft to think that you can have such a broad audience. My target is mostly usually young people and women, but I also find that a lot of men follow my brand because I think I follow differently. And the main agenda is money. We are not ashamed. We are no longer in the era of being embarrassed and ashamed that we are seeking money. So that will be very core, will be very central to the podcast in terms of, do you want to earn money for yourself? Do you want to put some money in your pocket? This is how to do it. And for me, it's very important to get you even to that finish line, because it's a cycle. I start here, I do this, I come around, I get my money, and then I start the process again. And in the process, you find that, yes, you're getting money, but you have to keep reinvesting your energy, your finances, everything into that thing. And then eventually now you can start removing money. But sometimes you find young people, especially the Gen Z, someone will come to me, they'll be like, I have 20,000 in the account. Wangari, what can I do? No, that is your survival money. Usianze biashara na pesa ya rent. because the turnaround is not fast enough for you to say that I'll have made enough rent for next month. If you start that business wants you to concentrate on it, to give it all it can, and eventually it starts to give back. So I think my target is women, because I am a woman. I understand the struggles of mindset. A lot of women want to start a lot of things, but they fear. They were not taught courage when they were young, and so that is among one of the biggest challenges that I faced. And I feel like also a lot of women have self-doubt, imposter syndrome. There's so much happening there. So my message will be very much tailored on that. And young people, the Gen Zs, I'm very impressed by Gen Zs. These people, they are trauma-free. They have different trauma from us. So it's very exciting seeing them work, seeing them start, seeing them, flow, seeing them, and not take the route that you have to work hard. Definitely you have to work hard. And I don't always agree with the statement that work smart, not work hard. But you still have to clock in and do the things you need to do. Money won't just show up just like that. You still have to do what is needed to do. That can be done in less hours compared to the traditional way, but you still have to work hard and work smart. But you have to know what is working smart, because sometimes people just throw that sentence into the air of work smart, but what does that entail, and how is it different from working hard? For me, I think it can be both. So yeah, I'm looking forward. Please always indicate your age. I'm always excited by young blood when they can learn one or two things and go ahead with it. In mushroom farming, I have a lot of demographic that is Gen Z. Not a lot, maybe around 20% are Gen Z, and they always reach out to me. And if there is the one group that I like to respond quickly, it's them, because I know that they are taking action. For the women, they take action, but sometimes there is a lot of self-doubt in the path, and eventually they fall off the wagon. So yeah, those are challenges we're gonna work through with together. So I hope you tune in, you listen to our podcast. Podcasts are good to listen when you're doing something. Sometimes YouTube won't allow you to multitask, as you're driving, as you're walking, as you're jogging, as you're doing your exercises in the gym, as you're just even hanging out at home, as you're trying to sleep. Switch on the podcast, listen in. You can still get so much value without engaging all your other senses. So yeah, I'm big on that. I use that all the time. I listen to Diary of a CEO obsessively when I'm going for my walks. So yeah, and YouTube is always a good thing because it makes sure that you're not distracted easily, because your sight is also engaged. So I'm excited and looking forward. It's going to be a journey for us as well. Our guests, we are looking forward to having very cool guests. I think I have immersed a few networks here and there, and I'm looking forward for them impacting knowledge to all of us. So yeah, it's been a good start, definitely. Let us know what you think.